On today's show, the Golden State Warriors have lost Chris Paul and Klay Thompson. They've managed to add Buddy Hield, De'Anthony Melton, and Kyle Anderson. But do they have one more big move left in them this offseason? Is Lauri Markkanen still in play for the Golden State Warriors? And if not, what are the Warriors going to do? We're going to unpack it all on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, I love sports. I love them so much. I never really want them to stop, right? But as you got playoffs winding down and then you get fewer and fewer games and maybe the sports just aren't sportsing the way you want them to, look, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want all summer long. All you have to do is open the app and dream up big bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Right now, you can head over to FanDuel.com and take a look at the outright betting favorites to win the title next NBA season. The Boston Celtics plus 300 to repeat, the OKC Thunder right behind them at plus 750, and then the Denver Nuggets not so far off in distant third place at plus 850. So for all those odds and so much more, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Joining us now is the newest host over at Locked On Warriors, Chuck Walter. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Warriors. We're going to dive into some Warriors offseason news, notes, rumors by chance. But first, Chuck, thank you. Well, thanks for being here with me. And then also welcome to the network, man. We're very excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Very excited to talk some Warriors, hopefully to entertain, inform, a nice balance of both of those, but definitely to inform.
And definitely a lot of that you can find over at Locked On Warriors. So again, go subscribe, go check it out wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. But Chuck, let's take a look really quickly here at some of what the Warriors have accomplished already this offseason, right? So they lose Chris Paul, they lose Klay Thompson. Obviously, Klay, a fixture of this era of Warriors basketball. So, kind of a tough pill to swallow there, a disappointing end to that relationship, I guess. Some mixed feelings on both sides, it seems. They've managed to add, though, De'Anthony Melton, Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson. Let's just kind of tackle those things right now, just in a vacuum. How would you kind of evaluate what the Warriors have done from that standpoint so far?
I feel like they've done what they could do. There was the writing was on the wall that Klay Thompson was gone. Both sides were ready to move on, especially Klay Thompson. It seemed like last year his head wasn't 1,000% with the Golden State Warriors, and he was going to explore his options. It became pretty easy in the offseason when the Warriors really made no attempt to bring him back. Klay's party went with one final 2-year deal, $20 million per year. The Warriors said not right now, and that's where Klay said, all right, it's time to move on. Asked Draymond and Steph to not use any of their clout to bring them back. And then from there, the Warriors have been busy. In the week since, it's De'Anthony Melton right away, who brings in a point of attack defender, long wingspan, someone that could shoot the three ball pretty well, and just a more defensive and athletic player than Klay Thompson is at this stage of Klay's career. So that's a nice get right there. Then they bring in Slow-Mo through the trade, the sign and trade with the Dallas Mavericks. He comes in from Minnesota and brings a completely different skill set, almost mimics what Draymond Green can do to a poor man's level. I'm not saying he's Draymond Green, but defensively and the way that he can be a floor general at that 6'9" length definitely helps the Warriors in that regard. And then you add in Buddy Hield, a really good shooter who has a role on this team, and that is probably coming off the bench, knocking down some threes. Everyone that's watched Buddy Hield over the years knows that he's streaky, sometimes a little inconsistent, but he's one of the best three-point shooters in the game. And when you add that to the mix, that right there is considered a decent offseason. The question now becomes, there's so many guards on this team, shooting guards and guards at the three position. It seems like they're in the makings for a trade, whether it's through Andrew Wiggins, whether it's through the couple of draft picks that they have and the first round picks that they have. Are they going to go out and get Lauri Markkanen? Is there another big fish in the mix? That's what every Warriors fan's kind of waiting on right now.
And that's what we got to talk about here for a second. We're going to get into the Markkenen rumors and stuff and what that could potentially look like for the Warriors. But I got to know, man, how are we feeling about people trying to already anoint this Splash Brothers Part 2 or whatever, the Buddy Hield? Because I saw that and I was immediately like, whoa, all right, not even a Warriors fan, but I think we've overstepped a little bit here already right out of the gate.
I was getting roasted badly for saying on the video that I only thought he was going to play like 18 minutes a game. My co-host Kylan's like, whoa, he's played in over 25 minutes every single season of his career. You think the production's going to dip down to 18? And I really do. I think that if the Warriors believe in some of the younger players that they have, a la Moses Moody, Brandon Bajemski, they bring in De'Anthony Melton at potentially the same position. It's like, where are all these minutes going to come from? That's why I think it sets up for a trade. And with that being said, you bring in Buddy Hield for the price that you get him at, about $12 million a year or whatever it came down to. Good price there. You gave up a second-round draft pick in 2031 to get him, so I'm not mad about the move by any means. I just was in the camp of he doesn't move the needle too much, aside from adding in a role, which is another floor spacer on this team.
Kind of a nice depth piece. And, again, more shooting is never really a bad thing in today's NBA. Absolutely. Now, when we start looking at the Lauri Markkanen stuff, the rumors, right, he's kind of this last big fish, or at least one that we think is available out there on the market, with the Utah Jazz, Danny Ainge, being willing to take calls on him. Obviously, dealing with Danny Ainge is kind of a recipe for disaster, because he wants an arm and a leg, and usually another arm, to be able to get anything that he has, whether it was with his time at the Boston Celtics or now kind of running the ship over with the Utah Jazz. In your eyes, what would the framework of a Lauri Markkanen trade look like that could make sense for both sides, for the Jazz and for the Warriors?
Well, the Jazz are going to want some picks. 2026 and 2028 first-round picks sound about right. Maybe a pick swap in there in 2029. Those are the picks that the Warriors have to dish out. And then it comes down to the players. Which players are the Warriors willing to potentially give up? Could they package Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga together? Would they do that? The tough thing is half the Warriors, I would say about 3/4 of the Warriors faithful, thinks Jonathan Kuminga at the very least is a really good basketball player already. And then there's about 1/4 of that fan base that also thinks he has the potential to take a massive leap and be a potential superstar. So do you want to give up someone that has that big of upside, that is still 21 years old, to get a Lauri Markkanen? And that's probably what it's going to take. It was what it would have taken to get Paul George. They decided otherwise, not to give up on Jonathan Kuminga. And at the end of the day, Danny Ainge holds the cards in his hand, because he's the one with Lauri Markkanen, and he's also the one that has fleeced teams over the years. But I do think two things can be true. One, I think the best chance of the Dubs winning a title in the Steph Curry and Draymond Green era, which is at least 2 years, we think, it involves them getting Lauri Markkanen. I think he is a star player that can be that number 2 scorer behind Steph Curry. At the same time, it can significantly alter the ceiling on the base end of the Curry Draymond era if you get rid of them. And it's just, what risk are you willing to take if you don't get Lauri Markkanen or don't go after him? Who is that secondary scorer that you can have to Steph? Because I think most people agree, looking at the roster right now, they're not championship contenders at this current moment.
Yeah, I think that's the tough thing when you start looking past Lauri Markkanen, which I'm in agreement there with you, right? The idea of adding him to this Warriors roster, if you're able to keep most of the other ancillary pieces, right? Obviously, you'd have to give up some of the young guys, some of the future draft capital, but you'd probably feel pretty good about running it back with a core 3 of Steph, Draymond, and Markkanen, and then the ancillary pieces around those guys. That feels like a team that might not be at the top of the pecking order in the Western Conference, but easily one that's talented enough to make some noise. And at this point, people should know better than to count out Steph Curry. If you can get him to the postseason, then let him maybe go on a run. But if the Warriors do potentially strike out on Lauri Markkanen, right? Maybe Ainge digs his heels in and he's not willing to make any moves, doesn't get the Godfather offer that he's looking for from the Warriors or from another team for that matter. What do you do if you're the Warriors? Do the moves that they've made thus far inspire enough confidence that you think here in this whatever we're calling it, 1 to 2 year window of the Steph Draymond era, now without Klay Thompson, kind of in the twilight of their careers at this point, do they have enough to still make a run in the West? And if not, is there a possibility that we see down the line where Warriors management decides, you know what, maybe we need to pivot from this and embrace the youth, right? And embrace the next chapter in Warriors basketball. And could that mean potentially a trade, for Draymond, or a trade for Steph maybe down the line? Or do you think those guys are at this point going to retire Warriors?
That's what's so tough about it, because Steph Curry's at that age going into, I think it's 38 years old. Don't quote me on it, 37 or 38, and still has so much left in the tank. I think the last time that he hasn't been a first, second, or third team All-NBA player when healthy was going back to 2014, including him being a third teamer last year. So if you can still get 2 or 3 more years, because you can also extend Steph, you could get 2 or 3 more years out of Steph Curry. I don't want to say as prime Steph, but is still hovering around an All-NBA talent. Look, the window's only open for so long. No tomorrow is guaranteed. Like, you got to go after winning a championship in this current moment right now, where you have the pieces to play with to potentially get it done, and go try and get someone like a Lauri Markkanen that just, is a catch and shoot guy. Put up more attempts per game in that realm than Klay Thompson did last year. And he would just step in so nicely to the system. Warriors have always been good defending around the rim. He would help in that regard. And then just a ferocious finisher on the offensive end. Aside from that, you don't get Lauri Markkanen, and you believe that you're just going to kind of bridge the gap like they've been talking about the last few years and incorporate some of the youth while still having Steph and Draymond there. It comes down to, how good is Jonathan Kuminga going to be? Can Brandon Bajemski take a step to where all of a sudden he's playing at an all-star caliber level? Is Trace Jackson Davis for real? And does he have a big sophomore surge? Like, so many things have to go right in order for the Warriors to be a contending team at this point in time. So I would say probably not. They have to go out and get someone. They do have pieces to leverage, though. I mentioned the draft picks. Andrew Wiggins is still on the books. They could potentially look to get rid of him, and it sounds like there have been some at least talks of trying to ship him out. Gary Payton, the second's a chip in there that you could try to get rid of his contract. And then from there, you can't really sign anyone. That's the thing with the second apron right now, where the Warriors are at. They got to go and try and do it through trades. And Lauri seems like the big one that would really make a ton of sense. On the other side, it would definitely hurt their ability to compete in about 4 or 5 years, you would think, which is just the nature of the win now method.
Will the Warriors be able to land Lauri Markkanen this offseason? If they strike out on the Markkenen sweepstakes, where will they pivot to ahead of this next season? You're going to have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Warriors. Chuck, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. Appreciate it, man.